Hey, what's up, nerds? Paul here at Radio Free Hammer Hall, and we're doing a discussion tonight. A lot of things are going on in the Warhammer universe. We got contrast paints that just dropped today, and all of the General's Handbook 2019 leaks and previews and everything hit today, and I'm sure there are other things in the news to be discussed as well. So, yeah, so far, I've got invites out to like a whole bunch of other people as well.
Well, are we not good enough for you, Paul? Is that what it is?
I mean, I could do worse. Tom could be here.
That's a good point. That would definitely be a downgrade.
Yeah. So we've got Vince from Warhammer Weekly and Tyler from Scrubby and Wells.
No, in name at least, in principle.
Well, you know, sometimes it's the principle that counts. So how's it going, boys?
Good, man.
Excellent. Yeah. Happy to be on here, chat with you fellas. So is this an open invite? Yeah. Do I have permission to invite others? Based on...
just
and
we're going to kick you off Facebook with other people first.
Paul, we're going to kick you off your own cast with your internet acting like Tom's internet.
Yeah, you cut out there for a minute, but you know, there you go. Yes, there's a lot going on today. No, as I said to you before we went live, no, I did not buy any. I have this light in front of me, everybody. Like, but this is my normal painting light now. I got this new lamp, and it's sweet as all get out. I love it, but it sits in front of me now, so it's actually like I can move it out of the way, but then it wouldn't be visible for what I'm painting, so that would defeat the purpose. So you just got to put up with this little Tron thing. I'll try to stay at this level, so I got that like Geordie thing going on with the visor.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't get to try them because instead I talked about Iron Jaws today, because that is frankly the thing I am most excited about in this new GHB. I loved everything I saw with Iron Jaws. I don't want a book now. A book could only ruin it. It's fine. Got everything we need. 3 pages was good. Call it a day. Like, solid.
Yeah.
If everybody got those
new allegiance abilities, right?
I mean, they kind of switched around some of the ways the allegiance abilities work and added in a spell lore and cheapened the battalions and made them better, the mega battalions. We retain our 1-drop status. So, you know, why don't you suck on that, Sylvaneth?
Mm-hmm.
You're losing yours, but we remain because the orcs is the best.
And apparently we're losing our wild woods.
I mean,
we're losing our magic, but we're not going to be salty here on this show here. So
I'm sure the Sylvaneth will be fine, and if they're not, we're all the better for it.
Nah, well, you might not be wrong about that. No, I think they will be fine. It only took me 3 weeks to come to that conclusion, but hey, we got there.
Well, change is always big, right? And Sylvaneth, clearly, given the span, right, between the original book and now, I mean, it was obvious there was going to be big change, right?
Yeah.
So it was always going to be a rough transition, let's call it. Is that fair, Tyler?
Yes, absolutely. So we're 4 minutes in. We're talking about Sylvaneth just as planned. Let's keep going.
You've already tricked us.
Yep. The agenda has changed, and we've got a lot to talk about.
It's amongst the things in the new GHB, right? Like, it's in there.
Sure.
Indeed. Sure. The hot takes have only been negative, so we could add some positive to it.
So
one of the contrast paints that I have been experimenting with so far is Wildwood.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Well, I have a more GHB directly related question. Did they print the compendium points in the point book?
I believe so.
Like they did.
Yeah.
Okay. So they actually like reprinted those in a new updated source under, I assume, a separate heading somewhere. Like, is there actually a compendium heading?
Yeah,
I think there's a compendium thing at the back.
Oh, that's neat. Because I saw somebody share the Tomb King's points.
Right.
Like,
haven't they renamed Compendium Legends? Isn't that synonymous now?
I don't think so, because Legends means like you don't have points at all and you have completely new war scrolls and all that sort of stuff. Like what they did with a lot of the Dark Elf stuff when they moved it in there. They wrote brand new war scrolls for everything, and most of it was like the old special characters, like so Loki or Felhart got rules, and old Malekith on Black Dragon, and that kind of stuff. This was something different. Yeah, that's neat, cool. Nice bone to throw there. Put them back in there. I've said for a long time, like at this point, you could let them in tournaments, and if like I don't mind the separation. A long time ago, like long before this, go back to 2016, we were having this discussion of like we all thought Tomb Kings were going away, and what do we do with them? Like that when they first got there at the first printing, and we said, what do we do with these old armies? And I said very simply, you split it up and you make like a type 1, type 2 type situation or something like that, right? You have sort of this old list, and these are the things, and they just need some kind of segregated special heading. And type 1 is kind of everything here forward that's still legal, and type 2, or when type 2 is like everything or whatever, right? So as a tournament, you can go, yes, we will allow all of these things carte blanche, or no, we won't. And that's what they did, and that's fine. So if you're a tournament and you want to let in all those forces, cool.
Yeah,
there were already people that were fine with people running their Bretonians and Tomb Kings anyway.
Of course. Absolutely. I'm just saying, like, I like them being formally in there with that designation, because obviously they weren't in the last GHB, right?
Yeah.
So
I think there were at least a few people that kind of lost their minds about that.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of happy to see them back. Like, whatever, that's fine. I like them sitting there under some kind of different segregation. Obviously, I don't have the book, so I don't know what it looks like, but that's my understanding. So cool beans.
Yeah. And for the viewers, we were talking about this just before things got started. If you go to, I'm just gonna quickly spruik Guerrilla Miniature Games, because they did a review of the GHB, and they did it in 2 parts. And they did the whole thing with like a top-down camera on the book. So you can basically just go through that video and take screenshots like every time he turns the page and have the whole friggin' book. So everything is there. It might be little and grainy. You might need to squint. You might need to be like, is that a 6 or an 8? But it's all there.
That just doesn't seem worth it.
Yep. Yeah, it was excellent. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Maroc. Always my favorite week of the year. The week in between GHB pre-release and GHB release, when we all slowly get better photos over the course of the week. Always a fun, my favorite week of these like randomly assembled pictures until eventually we all just get the real thing.
Yeah.
And it also that review, just to bang on that a little bit more, is his entire review of the point section was almost zero commentary. It was go through the book, look for the asterisks, and just read out unit name, new point value. It's like, thank you, sir. You have been a great service to everyone.
Absolutely.
You got to get them clicks, man. Nah, it's good enough. Jobs are good, and that's fine.
Yeah.
On a points note, Skin Wolves are still at 160. I'm sad.
Some of these deployment zones are wild with these new scenarios.
Yeah. Duality of Death is crazy.
Do you want to talk about any of the new scenarios?
Personally, I've only really read, let's see, Star Strike and Scorched Earth, which are both fascinating. Scorched Earth with 8 objectives, the most that I've ever seen in a Warhammer scenario. 8
objectives, but obviously they can go away quite easily. So
sure, yeah, absolutely. But as an MSU true believer, as I said in our chat, I'm a huge fan of both.
Yeah, the like BCR needed more reason to cry. Like, geez, these poor guys, just like, oh, that's an auto lose. That's total commitment times a million. And just real quick, I want to answer one of the comments that's in your chat right now, which is Ken saying he was crying tears onto his Nighthaunt models as you're painting them. Don't feel bad about your Nighthaunt models, dude. Nighthaunt's they're in a good place overall. Just give Tom a week or two. He's already been shooting me lists, so you're good.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the horizontal, the Scorched Earth change of actually not only having 8 objectives, but also the cutting the table. Yeah, exactly, cutting the table horizontal or vertically or whatever. Obviously greatly affects that, because now you can't just bust across the board and destroy their points, right? Because 2 of their points are way deep in their backfield. So
right.
What did you guys think about the
absolutely
diagram?
Yeah, I think that one's really cool. And Star Strike is also fascinating. With now we have what 12 options on where it can land in your deployment zone. In the middle.
Can you hear Maroc, Tyler? Because he said something and then you didn't.
Oh, no.
And then you talked.
Sorry, no, I can't.
That's weird. I can hear you.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Tyler, can you hear him?
Okay.
No, I can't.
Can you hear me now?
Huh. Well, Tyler can hear everybody else except Maroc. That is so weird.
So maybe
really
one of us
weird.
should try to rejoin.
Is that Canadian internet?
Strange.
Here, I'll
Leave it
rejoin.
alone.
Maybe that'll fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys think about
Go ahead.
that crazy what did you guys think of the crazy diagram that is now the new
Relocation orb.
the relocation orb? Like, that is insane. Like, it's awesome, but
It's an extremely simpler diagram. I love that everybody's freaking out because it has swirly curves on it, but it's like a much simpler diagram than the previous one because it can be in a more limited number of places and it moves in a much more predictable, or well, I shouldn't say predictable way, but in a much more limited number of ways. How about that?
it's just curvy and strange.
It's just they drew curvy lines and everybody was like,
like, oh my god, let me get out my protractor.
Yeah, it's like, nah, guys, they just don't want the lines to run over each other. It's pretty straightforward. It's not the biggest mystery here. So yeah,
The old one was like unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's fine. I was fine then. I've always liked Relocation Orb. I know many people hated it, but whatever.
Okay.
Hi, Tyler.
That's
Welcome back.
Hey, I can hear Maroc now.
Hey, yay! All right, so you were discussing the scenarios. Please continue, Tyler. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So Star Strike, I think that's another fascinating one with the 12 places that it can land now, and so maybe MSU will be even a little more valuable in that one. I mean, it's already quite relevant. I haven't looked at the other ones too much, but of course, with all of these, or at least with many of them, I don't know if all of them, they've given us 2019 versions. So they had the older existing battle plans, and they created 2019 versions for them.
Right.
Yeah. And there's some rule in there about like how to choose between the 2019 or 2018 battle plans for the same mission.
Yeah.
It's like you roll this up, then you roll another die to decide which year's version you use, or something like that.
Okay.
What did you guys think of the whole terrain thing for matched play? Like, that seems like it's going to make it really difficult to put down like your allegiance specific terrain.
I can tell you exactly what is going to happen to that in almost every single GT that I can think of. That page is going to be ripped out and thrown away.
You're talking here about the rule that terrain has to be placed more than like 6 inches away or whatever, right? That all the placed terrain. Yeah, I mean, what I think about it is I look forward to 4 weeks from now, or 3 weeks, or however long, when we get the FAQ about how the heck that actually works. Because like, as it stands right now, the FAQ has already answered that question. It is the existing FAQ says that individual war scrolls and rules sources overwrite general rule sources, right? Like the GHB. So theoretically, your individual battle tome already wins and says you can put that over it, which then raises the question of what is this actually answering? I don't know. But you know what my answer is, whatever, they'll clarify it then.
I just thought it was crazy because they want you to put down like 10 pieces of terrain, have 5 of half of those pieces of terrain to have special rules. And then you can't put your scenery down on the board because it's got to be 6 inches away from the board edge and then 6 inches away from any terrain pieces.
Sure. Well, I mean, and obviously that's clearly not accurate for things. Like, what I mean is like that would literally make null unplaceable. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they didn't just make a rule and go, well, we're just going to invalidate that thing we printed. Like, no, if they wanted to change null holes, they would just change null holes. They wouldn't, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. They did not intend for this to be the like stealthiest of stealth nerfs to null holes. Gnaw holes were not the thing that were making Skaven a problem.
Yeah, I think I use gnaw holes maybe once a game. Like, I
Well,
do not use them much.
I mean, are you saying to teleport or are you saying for arcane? Because I use gnaw holes every
I'm
round,
using
baby.
for arcane every turn.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
be
so-
clear here.
I've
That's
got a
just
quick
three force
question
plus one
for
cast.
Vince.
Yeah, man.
How do you feel about Iron Jaws getting their own spell lore?
I'm excited about it because it's 5 spells I don't really care about and one that says teleport a unit.
The Hand of Gork, when I saw that, I was like, Vince is going to go nuts when he
Yeah,
sees
the big Hand of Gork, the better Hand of Gork than the stupid
Yeah.
little Hand of Gork. Yeah, the great big green Hand of Gork. Yeah, I mean, the answer is I feel fantastic about it. Good. I mean, we still have like one of the worst casters as far as cost wise goes, but there's suddenly like he is at the same time a caster who can pretty easily achieve +2, especially in a world where Ardboys just got a lot cheaper, right? And also you can now sort of reliably pile Ardboys into bigger units because you can use blood tooths, so you only need 3 units to achieve your 6 WA count, right? So the answer is that's good.
I was kind of disappointed with the change to Ironclad. It's like
that it's not cheap enough.
No, Ironclad, the command trait that used
Oh,
to
sorry, I thought you meant
by
the
one.
Ironclad.
No.
The KO thing.
No, I don't care.
Vince was confused. He forgot that Tom's not here and that nobody else cares about KO.
I don't care about those stupid dwarves.
Fair answer. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's fine. It was bound to happen. Like, it is what it is. If we get a book, it doesn't matter. There'll probably be some other defensive thing that like the army gets or something like that. So who cares? I don't think you really needed Ironclad. You're gonna just take, if you really want it, you can just take the Ethereal Amulet or Ignax's Scales or whatever. The fact that guy, I never liked defensive items on him. To me, he was always like a suicide piece.
Right.
And you held him back. The goal with him was to hold him back like 30 inches away from what you want to charge, meaning he's outside of the range of most things that'll kill him. And then on his turn, he just rips forward with Mighty Destroyers and easily gets into combat with something 30 inches away.
Yeah.
Because he just zips across the board. So, I mean, whatever. It's all with mega bosses on Maw Crushes. People being soft with their Maw Crushes is why people don't fear them. But now the fact that in Iron Suns you can like stack him up with the D3 extra hero kills, meaning he could have up to 3 extra wounds and attacks. The fact that you can give him neg3 rend with the artifact there and have like say another Maw Crusher with neg3 rend because you can get you can reach into the realm artifact now. And have 2 neg3 rend dudes. Yeah,
pretty
that I'm about.
terrifying.
He's still a little too expensive, but it's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping he'd come down a bit more because I don't know. I really want to see those, like, you see these 3 great unclean ones all the time, and like I was saying like earlier today, I was like, I want to see like a 3 Maw Crusher list where it's like them and I don't know a few units of like Gore Gruntas or something, but I want to see the 3 like huge dudes just like plowing through everything.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have a second. I only ever did 1 mega boss on Maw Crusher because frankly I didn't need to do more. Like I never built a list that used 2 because it's just such a trap. But I've had a second one for a long time. He's sitting on my shelf and I already know what the conversion I have planned for him is. Are you folding laundry, Tyler?
Maybe.
I'm glad to see how much we've interested you with this conversation. We went to Iron Jaws and you checked out immediately. Just immediately. He was like,
well,
no.
Actually, I've been meaning to ask you, are you playing? You're not playing Iron Jaws at NashCon, are you?
No, I'm bringing my Slanesh. Like I'm all about it. We're living in the world of Slanesh here, baby.
You might have a really good friend attending NashCon.
Okay.
Who has loved Iron Jaws for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And who has who has talked with you on long road trips about the beauty and grace of Iron Jaws, who may just so happen need an army to play at NashCon.
Gotcha. You're saying you want me to bring my Iron Jaws for you?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying.
That's fine. I just got to get David to agree to take him out of like the painting voting or whatever. I'm not playing against myself here.
Of course.
I love how that's your only like. Yeah, sure. Just it's not allowed to be in the painting competition because I'm not competing against myself.
Right.
Yeah, man. I got my, look, I've got my things I care about here. Sure.
Yeah, there's only so many trophies that Vince can walk away with and feel okay about it.
And this time it's Slanesh, god damn it.
Like, well, look, I only have one bite at the apple here for painting awards at NashCon, because I'm judging the there's 2 painting awards at NashCon, and I'm judging one of them. So I mean, obviously, I am not eligible for that one.
Right.
So I'm just saying.
Oh boy.
But yeah, great changes. Love the teleport. The spell that allows you to potentially do D3 mortal wounds or D6 to enemy units if you have a lot of your units by the caster, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's on an 8. B said there's ways to get bonuses. I didn't know there's ways to get bonuses to cast.
Yeah. Your Weird Knob Shaman gets +1 to cast if he has 10 Oryx around him, and +2 if he's got 20 Oryx around him.
Oh, sweet.
Hence why, like, suddenly Ardboys being, cheaper and a more relevant option is actually quite impactful. And if I was going to go like Ardboy heavy, especially in larger groups, I would go Blood Suns all the way, or sorry, Blood Tooths. I apologize, because Blood Tooths gives you another +1 to run and charge, meaning that your Ardboys are now +4 to charge. So when you teleport them 9 inches away, they get into combat on a 5.
Yeah.
That's like, no, who needs Cogs? Cogs is for losers. Okay. Cogs is for closers.
That's weak sauce right there.
Is that
Right.
new, the +1 built-in charge with the battle trade, or?
No, the +1's always been there, but then
Okay.
being on Blood Tooths is new. Whatever. It's yes, like the way that it all works out now is you can get up to that +4. That's all. New.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is insane. Like
That's a big bonus. No joke, Marak. Yeah, you ain't kidding, man. +4 it's a lot. It's a lot to charge.
And you don't have to spend a command point. You don't have to do anything all that complicated.
No, it's just
Yeah,
you have to exist. Yes, correct.
So like that's like even higher than the crazy like Centigore Alpha Strike thing that I was doing there for it, where it's like they just run 24 inches across the board on turn 1, and you take like a unit of 15 of them. So it's like 30 wounds on a 4-up
Sure, I mean,
combat, and you just lock up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the key is that your Mighty Destroyers move became a command point driven thing. So, my supposition at this phase is that the Aether Quartz Brooch went from like highly, a should have to a must have. That's my read on it, because between wanting to multi-wa and wanting to, and needing to do it to get Mighty Destroyer stuff off so you can move your army around more reliably, you're going to want that, you're going to be burning through CPs. And especially now that you're limited to no more than like 1 CP purchase at the beginning. Not that I ever had enough, or not that I ever bought CPs with IJ anyways. That's for losers who don't start with 2 battalions. That's what that's for.
Like I'm really happy that they have done away with the like roll for how many units are around him and all that bullshit. It's like the dude's wawing. He's on a big fucking lizard. Like they should just follow him and get their extra attacks. Like screw it. Why does there need to be a roll?
Well, there still needs to be a roll. They didn't get rid of that. The wall itself still is powered by the same thing.
I thought they got rid of the roll and it was just like a CP to.
No, they got rid of it for the Mighty Destroyers, where you needed to roll a 6-up or a 4-up if it was the general to move in your hero phase. That's what became a command point. The command ability is still on the scroll. That's still what it is. It just became way easier because Bloodtooths can now trigger it off of 3 units. Their 3 units counts as 6. They're doing some high level math there, Paul. 3 = 6. Would you put that in your math pipe and smoke it, huh?
That is some math right there.
That's how orcs do math. That's right. 3 = 6. Deal with it.
Because
Mega
like O'Doyle,
battalions-
orcs.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying because like O'Doyle, orcs rule.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. What were you going to say, Tyler?
Those mega battalions, did they go down?
Yes, they did. You went from like 300 all in on your battalions, which is what I had to, which is what I was running the whole time I was there. Like I happily spent 300 points on battalions. Okay. They are now, it's now 240 basically if you go with the traditional Iron Fist plus Iron Suns and or Blood Tooths.
Nice.
And they got better. Like the battalions themselves are better, a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the battalions. I just hadn't looked at the point set for them. Yeah, that's great. 240 for a one-drop battalion. I mean, yeah, that's what we had, and it was amazing. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, and it feels like it's perfectly okay in that army because it is a melee army that needs to like only be in melee somehow and have a decision like that. I wish they would. Maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe this is actually a very, very intentional choice because I've always argued that they should use drops as a design element.
Yeah.
Right. Like they should give certain armies the ability to one drop and make that a thing that's sort of factored into that army. Right. A sort of unstated allegiance ability, as it were. Right. Like I think if KO came back out, I wouldn't mind them retaining sort of a one drop potential in some way. It doesn't have to necessarily be through like a clown card thing. It could just be actually like legitimized and built into their thing. Are you claiming shenanigans, Paul? Was that what that was?
No, that was just a cough. That was
okay. I thought you were shenaniganing me.
A little PTSD.
No, I would be fine with KO doing that.
Yeah, as a fragile shooting
army.
army. I mean, like, I would like them to actually be able to alpha some people decently hard with their shooting because that's what makes it a game. Because if they basically do nothing with their shooting and then die, okay.
Yeah.
I know people hate getting shot, but like, buck up, little soldier. That's how the game is sometimes. Like, either we have melee dependent metas where 5 wound heroes that are synergistic rule the day like daughters, or we actually allow shooting sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
And it's fine.
And Clown Car was pre 2.0, right?
Oh yeah. Clown Car was way back.
So
it got busted a while back.
So we didn't even have Lookouts when it was around. So,
yeah, I mean, exactly.
I've been playing Slanesh. I love getting shot. Go ahead, strike my heroes all you want.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I'm always better if they're not. I'm better to die in melee because that means I actually probably already swung on them. And that meant somehow, hopefully, depravity was gained and I got happy.
Yeah, it's that Infernal and Rapturous that always gets fucking shot first. I find anyway.
Well, sure, people are shooting your Harpist. I mean, that tells me that whoever you... Well, do you play with a Contorted Epitome?
Yes, I do. But
okay, then the people who you're playing have bad target priority because that should absolutely be hunted like the devil.
I keep the Contorted Epitome where it like is out of line of sight and stuff most of the time, so that's why they don't shoot at it. As soon as it comes out of hiding, then it gets shot. But then they get surprised when it's like, yeah, it has a 12-inch move. What?
It's so fast. It's shockingly fast.
Also, here's 9 attacks in the Sword of Japan. Goodbye.
It is a funny thing when that thing attacks, but I mean, its ultimate death is just random shooting. You know, just like some block of Ungors.
Yeah, block of Ungor Raiders.
That's like a nightmare scenario where you're or just like a couple things of Judicators, right? Like that's no, because they're getting rerolls they're getting rerolls against you because you're chaos, and they're giving you rend. So suddenly it's just like you're on a 6-up. Okay, and they're not relying on any mortal wounds, right? Because the thing's 5-up normally. Yeah, it's basically immune to mortal wounds, but against just like Judicator shooting, it rolls over and dies.
Yeah, like I had a
or
game
or anything like that
against the new Fire Slayers, and my buddy was all like excited about his Hearthguard Berserkers and stuff. He's like, dude, they do all these mortal wounds and it's going to be great. I was like, okay. So I took the mask and the contorted epitome and pinned him on either side so that he was like strung out. So he couldn't like pile in properly. And then I had the mortal wound saves and everything. It was hilarious. The contorted epitome still died, but you know, it was
I'm a
fun
big
while
fan
it
of the
lasted.
mask. A lot of people underrate the mask. I'm a big fan of her. I think she's an excellent pinning unit. She's a relatively
Oh, hell yeah.
survivable model who can self-heal on a 32 mil base. That's very good at pinning large hordes of enemies. The mask has performed well for me in all the games where I've used her. I'll often use her to stop piling in, like to pin a unit from piling in very much, because I'll engage it on one side with something I want to do work, and then the mask will just sneak around to the other side and grab them. So then, you know, have to like basically split the unit in half to where it has to pile, and you kind of make it so very few people can pile in on you, and you kind of get them. Looks like we got you caught in a little bit of a crossfire, Wyatt. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, so cute use of the contorted epitome that I saw. Friend of mine that played it in a GT in New Jersey last weekend ran it in a Nurgle list as an ally and ran it around in the middle of a unit of plague monks.
Okay.
To just maximize the blendering of the plague monks.
What was it doing to the plague monks?
Yeah, I don't understand.
It, if I remember correctly, doesn't it make other things strike last?
On a 4-up, and they have to be within. Well, no. It has its own. It has its own sort of pseudo locus, but it triggers at the start of combat instead of at the end of the charge phase. So things that already fight first can outfight it, right? But before like it triggers, if it's not your turn, and it's on a 4-up. But yeah, they do get a single bite at the apple. So sure, I could see that. I guess. I mean, that's a tougher play because you got to be within 6 inches, so it'd have to stay relatively close to the front of the plague monks, right? Not super close.
Yeah.
But sure, it's fun. I mean, it's probably a better caster than most anything outside of the super caster Guo. A reroll is a reroll and +2 are pretty close to equivalent.
Yep.
Mathematically, so sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, it was an interesting play.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, there's obviously a lot of discussion of doing things like bringing Kairos in to the Fate Weaver. I know Nico's running a Fate Weaver Slanesh list. Just so you've got the destiny control of being able to set dice whenever, to change dice rolls and do all sorts of funny things. So
that does sound cool.
Well, yeah, and you'd also be able to set the dice rolls of the Oli Strikes Last rolls. Or it's not, not a thing.
Yeah, no, you can do that. Yeah. Kairos can change anything. Kairos can change anything except priority. So like if you're playing Skaven and they have like a screaming bell and they roll like a 1 and any other number, you can just change the other die to a 1. So they guys their bell.
Kairos change the D3 that you get for burning in Scorched Earth?
Yes, he can. He can change anything, any die roll except priority. I will pull up the rule.
Scary.
And yes, it is a very funny ability. You are absolutely correct. He can do that. Oracle of Eternity. Once per battle, you can change the result of a single dice roll to the result of your choosing. However, period. End of sentence. Okay. However, this ability may not be used to affect the roll to see who takes the first turn in a battle round. So that is the only restriction. It cannot determine priority. Beyond that, once a game, he may manipulate any one die roll. So yes, the priority thing is a huge deal.
So does that mean if you like take your blood tooths or whatever and you roll the D3 for like how many heroes your dude is killed and you get the 3, he can change it to a 1?
I need to look at when exactly that triggers because I don't. I don't remember if it's before the start of the game or during the game. Kairos' ability couldn't affect it if it's before the start of the game. That would be the restriction. Because it does say once per the battle, and you haven't actually started the battle yet at that point. It could, however, well, I don't know. I need to look at the Iron Suns and see if it's the same thing for when you roll the 2+ to determine if you're neg 1 to be hit in the first round, right?
Oh yeah.
Because like I would need to look at the exact wording on the new scrolls. I haven't when they redid the battalions. I don't know if they changed any of that timing at all. So I would need to go read those.
So backing up, Paul, maybe start with what are your thoughts, Paul, on the overall changes, overall what you've seen so far today with GHB 19?
It looks like they're basically trying to not make really heavy-handed moves. That's what I've noticed, is that there's very few things that are more than 10 or 20 point moves. And there's a lot of like...
Except that purple sun, yo.
Yeah.
Purple sun going down 50.
I was just staring at it right now.
Than where it was to begin with.
Yeah. It's not bad at all for 50. I've been looking at the worst scroll. Like, yeah, I could.
Oh, Kairos can also set the purple sun roll to a 6 and auto give somebody.
Nice.
That's another fun Kairos play.
Auto 2d6 mortal wounds to something over 6 plus wound characteristic.
Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like what they're doing, from kind of looking over all of the general points changes, is that they took all of like the top tier armies and they increased their points a little bit. In all of the lower tier armies, they decreased their points a little bit. And other than that, it doesn't seem like they did a lot. But there's some points changes that are just going to like fundamentally change certain armies.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's some things they did that I think people are like your problem spots right now are like, I'm not sure that Nagash actually needed to be changed. Like, okay, he changed. I don't know why he didn't feel like he was a problem anymore, but that's fine. He felt like he was fine at 800. I don't think he needed to be 850.
That would seem like potentially a reflection of a meta that was pre-public, was a little past us.
Yeah, the evocators changed. Like, I get the sequiturs. I'm not sure I understand the evocators. I don't think foot evocators are actually that bad. And by the way, everybody, when they say this, are like, in the world of Skaven and Gristlegore, I'm like, nope, stop that comparison right now. Because if you think that world survives another 2 weeks, like, I think I don't think that's how the world looks in 2 weeks, right? But yeah. I don't think foot evos were ever a problem. I think what needed to happen was what they got it half right? Because they like lowered the cost on all the other paladins and Dracoline riders and crap like that. Okay, yeah, thumbs up, good stuff. That's what needed to happen. Totally down with that change. Down with like the reduction of the Paladors and that kind of stuff. Yes, good, great, awesome. I just feel like some of the Evo stuff was like, well, that probably didn't need to happen. But I also don't know that it's like the end of the world for Stormcast. Like it's there are many Stormcast players who are quite upset about it. And I'm agreeing that it was probably a little unnecessary, but I also don't think the army broke or anything. Like, it's probably in about the same place overall it was before, which is, classically an army that somewhat struggles for reasons that don't have much to do with points.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that a lot of the point values seem perfectly fine within the context of the War Scrolls and the book, but in actual objective-based games, it's different with that army. All else equal, especially now that skinks can skink. Well, I guess they could still take skinks for allies because they can ally with anything. But so yeah, I don't know. Like Evocators 220, that seems okay. But yeah, they probably could have stayed at 200.
Right. Like, again, I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's also probably a necessary change. Yeah. The people I feel bad for is like, I really do hope that like BCR or Gutbusters or whatever treatment comes out pretty soon. Because like, man, those guys are getting the shortest end of a short stick. Like, destruction is already a rough world to live in, and those guys are, when you're at the bottom of that pecking order, that's not great.
Did you guys watch Doom's video today?
He clearly was. He was a little sad. He was salty.
Oh
It's
man,
okay.
I feel for the guy, and like in terms of like content, he's probably the person that I like digest the most. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I just love watching his shit and talks.
Yeah,
whatnot.
his bat reps are just like they're amazing.
Yeah, like
Getting
his
the-
content is awesome, and his
Yeah.
views on things and his off the cuff style of doing things, I just really respect. And like, kudos to him for putting out a video and like giving his true like
Opinion.
about it.
He
Like,
didn't sugarcoat it. That's for sure.
hell no, and that takes balls. Doom, if you're watching this, you got balls, man, and I respect that.
At the same
Um,
time, I feel like, again, like I get it. I his anger is valid. He's making good points. If I would have sat on that for the weeks until the Skaven and FEC and all those changes come out. Now, again, none of that fixes the potential problem of what should have happened with BCR and Gutbusters. And again, if that's the case, if they're going to do something with those armies, then do something with them. Like, don't just say the flippant comment, in the thing of like, they're just as good as they've always been. So not like, that's just not you can do better than that, guys. You know what I mean? Like, you know where that army's at. And, just like actually putting in that sort of a comment just seems silly. So I would have much rather seen them say, we're not making any changes to them because they've got a new book coming out in 2 months. Yay. And it would have just been like, all right, well, okay. I don't think anybody would have been mad. They would have been like, all right, cool. I guess I have to wait a little longer, but I know I've got a thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I think all the changes in Iron Jaws signals to me that we don't have an Iron Jaws book coming. Like, I don't think that's happening.
Maybe not. Who knows? I don't care. I don't need one. At this point, like before, I had classically went on record saying I don't care about or ogres or ECR. They are the ever-present forgotten army to me. Like, I forget they're part of the game. And because I was like, well, because Iron Jaws should get their book first because they're cooler. I rescind that statement. We don't need it anymore. As I said at the beginning, I'm good. We're fine. Handle those other people. They need some attention. We're good over here. All good on this side of the table. All good over here.
I'm like, I don't know. I just want to see what Doom can do with that. Like, he's done so well with just them as they are right now. Like, you watch his battle reports with his Iron Jaw or his Gutbusters, and it's like he plays the game to win it and plays to the objectives and stuff, but like his way of thinking about using the army is really spot on. So like, I want to see what he can do with a battle tome, you know what I mean? Where the army's actually got its own thing.
Yes, well, spoiler alert, Doom is a very good player.
Yes, he is.
And it's funny because he's a good player in an area with actually, like there is a lot of really good players down there in Australia in his area and in the larger Australian meta. And I've always been a fan of the Australian meta because they think outside the box a lot. They run surprising stuff. They don't get hemmed into just sort of the what do I want to say? Like the shared knowledge, right? Like they very much blaze their own path.
Like Dave Kerr winning a tournament with 6 Thundercats.
Sure. I mean, the what's his name? Matt? Is it Matt who won CanCon with Korn?
Yeah, I think so.
He just took out another event with a new book. Like he just took first with the new Blades of Korn book and another big event.
You know if he was running Tyrants or?
I don't know. I'm not sure what his list was. I just know he was running New Korn.
Nice.
So I mean, the point is that like, I think for most armies, as always, and we talk about this every time, like everybody is always ultra hopeful that the GHB is going to be panacea, right? The build up to this book every year, the story is the same. Every year, this is it. Make no mistake who you are. This is it. The waiting is over. No, every year, like people pin all their hopes and dreams on the GHB. And every year it's not that. It's good. It's usually doing a bunch of positive things, but it doesn't solve every problem or point everything or fundamentally upend the game, right?
Yeah.
But like little things often have big effects. Like with the scenario thing's a good point because armies will shift in quality a lot around. Again, let's take out the two problem children right now. Armies will shift a lot in quality just based on the new scenarios and how they play and differences in them. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think doesn't the Places of Arcane Power just require a hero now or something? That changed in some way, right?
I was looking at it. I was having a hard time reading the text.
Okay.
Do you know?
I'm pretty sure that one changed as well.
Only one model can control each objective. If fewer than one model is eligible, if more than one model is eligible, then the first to arrive. Friendly heroes within 3 of the objective at the end of any player. I'm not sure.
Does it just say friendly heroes? Because if it does, then obviously Places of Arcane Power used to be, wizards and
I think it's just artifacts. Yeah, it looks like it's just hero now.
Yeah. So, that's a big change right there, right? That's less punishing to all those armies without wizards, because now the only one that's really wizard based is Relocation Orb, and frankly, most tournaments steer away from Relocation Orb anyways, right?
Right. Halo Twitch tweeted out a picture of like this massive fire and this guy like tossing like a little bucket of water out his balcony.
The PCR points changes. That'll fix it.
Yeah. And so when I saw that, I was like at work at our morning meeting, like right before it started.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like dead silence, and there's like 20 people around me, and like dead silence. I looked at that and just burst out laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And like loud. And everybody just stopped and stared at me, and I didn't know how to explain to them what I was laughing at. Because
just say a meme. I mean, do they know what memes are? Just be like, sorry, funny meme.
Yeah, I just it was hilarious.
I'm gonna write my memoir, but I'm gonna tell the entire story through memes. It'll be my memoir. It's not my joke. That's Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But at any rate, I can't take credit for that fantastic joke. Also that will definitely happen. That's one of those jokes that will absolutely happen. It's like when Dave Chappelle did the like wife swap thing as a joke, and then it became a real show like 2 years later. But I think for most armies, it was probably mostly good stuff. I think that some armies, they were clearly very light touch. Like, did Idoneth change enough not to spam eels still often? No. But did they also make it so thralls are now maybe more interesting? Right. Yes. Might people explore a little more stuff? Maybe. I don't know. So it's
The Marty Core shakes out to about the same as it was. Yeah, that Idoneth stands out the most as being the most disappointing, right? In terms of that which was in tier 1, or whatever you want to call it, that didn't change much either in terms of at least perceived power level right now and the variety. But again, maybe these new scenarios may have a greater impact on the list building with Idoneth, but I'm not sure if that will be the case. You could go MSU with the eels. They move really fast, and that might be a better solution than the other options they've got.
Right. Yeah, I feel like they missed a trick there, right? Like, am I happy to see the Sharks points come down and the Namarty points come down? Yes. Do I feel like they could have brought the turtle down another 60 points? Also, yes. But, I understand they don't want to be that. Look, I get it. Not everything has to be hyper competitive, right? So fine, fair. I'm okay with that. I just think it's a shame not to see that turtle model on the table more, because it is, pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shit. All right. It's been awesome, guys, but I've actually got to go to work. So
I'll have fun at work, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'll see you guys later.
See you later, Mark.
See you later.
But yeah, all in all, pretty good. I mean, I know Rob was writing off the meeting engagements on his show, the 1K thing, but I actually dig that a lot. I think the meeting engagement thing looks really cool. And I would love to see people run some meeting engagement tournaments like as their pre-GT thing at cons. So you say like at Nova or something, right? And maybe you got like a Thursday or at Adepticon or whatever. Like I know Alex is doing the big 4-person team event this year, but that's the kind of way I would love to see that sort of thing. I think that's super cool because you could actually do like a 5-game thing. There was traditionally a 1K tournament at Adepticon, but it was just the scaled down 1K, and it was kind of a little bit, it was not exactly what you might want it to be. Whereas, oh, cool, now there's an actual way to do that.
Yeah, because the game is definitely balanced at 2K.
It absolutely is, and certainly things get a little wonky at 1K. And I'm not also proclaiming that meeting engagements is suddenly some kind of panacea that makes that not the case, right? Like you can still take Nagash 2 units of direwolves in a corpse cart, and that's a valid army in meeting engagements.
Right.
Well, not any longer.
The game is balanced.
What happened? Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Why is that no longer a valid thing?
Because Nagash is
What?
850.
He's 850 now. Yes. Oh, that's right. I forgot his points went up.
And the dogs are
shit,
70.
I can't hear Tom.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about those points changes. I just talked about them earlier, and I totally forgot because that list was still stuck in my head when I had seen the points. Good call, Tom.
Yep.
You got me. Beautiful.
More Nagash.
Yeah. You can't fit him in there anymore.
I think on Nagash, if you look at their intended, like what they're saying to do for match play points or for match play tournaments, they're saying to always play in the realms and always use the realm spell. And in that universe, Nagash is more powerful.
Well, first of all,
then I think the points make more sense.
Well, first of all, your internet just pulled a Tom.
Otherwise, Nagash was already absurdly expensive.
Sure. Your internet pulled a Tom. So, but I got what you said. What you said was if Nagash is in the realm, more powerful than standard, and maybe may earn his points. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, like he is. Here's my problem. I very much like him in the meta because I like him as a boogeyman that holds back spellcasting armies. Right, like him as a threat, whether materialized or not, he has a visible impact on the meta because spellcasting armies always have to worry about him.
Right.
So
totally agree.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. I couldn't hear Tom.
So if anybody new joins, for whatever reason, you fall into a magical dead zone where you're the only person who can't hear them. Yeah. So Tom, what do you think of the new scenarios, man? We talked about that a little bit. Like, there's a lot of I'm very interested. I looked at some of them. So, like, I love the new Scorched Earth.
Yeah, I like all of them. They're all new, and they're really weighty. And what I mean by that is, like, it's going to matter. I've only found one thing that I can utterly break, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Rob was saying that 2 of the scenarios, because the way they're drawn, they're not actually, you don't actually start 24 inches apart. You start 22.77 inches apart.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm guessing that's going to be FAQ'd, and those are just going to say this should actually be 24 inches.
No. It's 22.7 because it's the diagonal. It's the way the diagonal splits. And at different points in the line, the way it cuts in both scenarios, some of those are 22.7 and some of them are a true 24 inches.
I get it. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so at the closest points, you're 22.7.
Now I understand. Okay.
Yes.
I hadn't looked through to do that math yet or dig into what he was saying.
We just have to do geometry.
Well, I'm straight out, man. Sorry. I was that's why I went into philosophy, because I don't like math. That's why all of us were in philosophy, except for the AI kids who were also math.
That was my undergrad. So
and look at how much you've put it to use.
Exactly. Win in Warhammer.
Thank God you play AOS, or that would just be the word. That would be the truly least used degree in history. But fortunately, you saving grace.
Nah, it taught me logic.
I understand.
No, it's
when did you? What made you forget logic?
Yeah, I don't know. No, it's interesting. I am going to have to step downstairs real quick because my wife is finally coming to bed.
Sure.
Okay. Cool.
You
no.
go relocate yourself.
Yeah, let me relocate and then I'll share that thought.
So you guys, I know Vince, you said you had not actually touched Contrast yet.
Nope.
Tyler, have you played with Contrast?
That's not true.
Like,
Hold on.
Yeah,
Pause on
yeah.
that. I haven't bought Contrast yet. I used Contrast at Warhammer Fest and found it to be just fine for in the 10 minutes I had to play with it. So, but correct. I haven't bought it yet. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tyler.
well, yeah, just to repeat on air what I told you guys, that I got challenged to make a commitment to actually paint up some dryads with Contrast and to record it. So that'll be happening in the not too distant future.
Well, first of all, that's wonderful. I cannot explain. Tyler, I've spent probably an hour trying to talk to you to get you to actually paint something.
Very earnest hour. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if this paint makes you actually paint something, I'm going to consider this entire project a success. Like Contrast paints has been worth it.
Yes.
It's good. You've done well, boys. We can pack it in. This
One
whole
of
project
our
has been a success.
right? One of our guys metagames on Thursday night, they had just gotten the Contrast paints in, and he started messing around with them for a half hour, and he came and showed us results. I mean, he's not an amazing painter by any means. I was blown away by how good it looked. Like legit, it looked solid. I would call it above tabletop standard. It was like a half hour work on a little corn underworld model.
Okay.
Nice.
I'm back now.
Welcome back, Tom.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, what were we talking about? So we're talking about scenarios, right?
Scenarios, yes.
So it's interesting. So basically what ends up happening is that you have like half of them, or like 5 of them are at 18 inches, 5 of them are at 24, and then 2 end up being at like this weird like diagonal.
Right.
In reading through all of them, it's interesting because like they changed the wording on some of them. Like, so you guys know that like for some of the capture ones, like they don't require, like Duality of Death, for example, requires either a hero or a battle line unit.
Yep. And Places of Arcane Power doesn't require you to be a wizard anymore. Yeah. Or have an artifact.
Which is a total win. But like, let me read this statement in Duality of Death view, and let's see if you can spot the hole. Right.
Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready, Tom.
So the normal rules for controlling an objective are not used in this battle. Instead, a player controls an objective if a hero or battle line unit from their army is within 3 inches of the objective at the end of any type of move apart from a retreat move. Okay?
Okay, with you.
That's how you claim it.
Yep.
The player loses control of the objective if the hero or battle line unit finishes a subsequent move more than 3 inches from the objective or is destroyed.
Okay.
What is the problem with that?
The player
If they leave the objective from a way that is not being destroyed.
Right. If they get teleported and reset up, right? Where it's not technically a move. Yeah.
So any teleport and reset up, you could relocate the controlling unit to another part of the board.
Yep. And they still technically retain control.
As long as they don't move.
Run a hero up there and then teleport him to the back corner and be like, "Ha! I've got this forever."
No, better. Play Night Haunt.
Yeah.
Move a block of 40 chain rasps up there.
Okay.
And then every turn, just teleport them anywhere in the board that no enemies are.
Is there anybody?
Because they can keep doing it. They can use the Harridan as a general to teleport, and he can summon all of them to him.
Yeah, I still don't know if that's. Yeah, I get it. I still don't know if that's better than just like a hero literally back cornered out of line of sight.
Well, no, but you can do that. But like, or you can do that with a hero. You can do that with the Harridan itself.
No, but what I'm trying to think of is there anything that acts like a chameleon skink that would satisfy the battle line or hero requirement, where you can pull them without resetting them up?
Oh, off the table?
Yeah.
No, in general, they have gotten rid of the pull from the table. No, the most egregious example of this might be like
Do the dispossessed does that dispossessed mining pick still exist, and does it still suck in that it requires you to go away for a whole turn? Because if so, you could have like your dwarven warriors claim it and then pick out or whatever, and then just be gone. Like they just don't exist. They're in the tunnels still claiming that thing.
suck it, bitches. We're out.
Yeah. That mining pick suddenly becomes like it's downside suddenly becomes an upside. Anyways, go ahead, Tom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that was like that, but that's the only example that I found where it's just outright like things are not working as they should.
Hmm.
And that's just poor wording. I'm sure it's going to be fixed.
Yeah, obviously that'll get FAQ'd.
Yes, you could just say that like if it ends its turn more than 6 inches away from the objective, it loses control of it. You know, like something as simple as that.
They'll probably just add the additional sentence like dies, ends any move away, or
turn more than 6 inches away. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then
because otherwise Night Haunt become like the best at Duality of Death if you had dual Heritons. Because they just run up, take the objectives, and then bounce out.
Sure, just leave.
And then every turn they can re-teleport anywhere on the board they want 9 inches away from the enemy.
They took the objectives and then left.
They left. They literally took the objectives. Suck it, bitches. It's so funny. But I mean, what I'll say is this: like, other than that hiccup, I love the objectives. They're short. I like the change to relocation one. It's a very elegant, simple change. Even though the diagram looks like some Eastern philosophy,
sure, it's a meditation. Yeah.
Yes, it's a meditation path. But I mean, I like just looking through. I think I've read basically everything. I love the increased number of objectives on Scorched Earth.
Yeah, we were talking about Scorched Earth at the beginning. I think that was obviously a very problematic scenario.
Yep.
And they turned the expectations upside down by vertically cutting it and backfielding 2 of them. It makes that such a more interesting and dynamic scenario, right?
Where you're not talking about the same thing. Scorched Earth is the one. Oh yeah, never mind. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Scorched Earth. 8 points. It's bisected vertically now, and there's 2 buried deep in your territory and 2 more front boarded, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I love on Star Strike they moved it to 2d6, so they increased the variability of where they could land. That's so huge because basically what I would do is I could basically have units on the points.
You could just sort of pre-camp, like you could have one unit guarding like the center and right, sort of like playing shortstop, basically, right? And then you just had another guy on first. Like that was how you always did it. Yes.
Yeah, I love the change to total commitment. Because it shortened the actual engagement distance. I think that it was an elegant, just subtle shift by cutting the diagonal like that.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
I love Battle for the Pass, the triangular deployment. It really created a really interesting challenge. Let's see what else. Knife to the Heart. I love the change Knife to the Heart because they made the 2 objectives very manageable for accomplishing. They weren't buried deep in enemy territory now, but they're actually set on a really interesting stagger diagonal.
Right.
That one's 9 away from enemy territory, so you're closer. Interesting.
I like the Duality of Death setup. This was a genius change.
Okay.
For those of you guys that don't know, so the Duality of Death, the significance there is that they put the deployment in split deployment, lined up with the objectives on the right and left, and you don't actually ever set up in the middle, right? Because the answer was always to set up in the middle and to support both points by holding the middle. And now you can't set up in the middle and then branch out to either of the points. You basically pre-commit to an objective in Duality of Death now during setup.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So, overall, I'm a fan. I love what they did. I think it is going to shake things up, and it is already forcing me to revisit the list building that I had started to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes you go back to the list building phase and say, like anytime the scenarios change, like all of your list requirements change.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. Like I was looking at the list building, and I was like, yeah, this whole Fire Slayer Death Star thing isn't going to be a thing. Like I know that people are like saying it's going to be a thing. It's not going to be a thing because a lot of these you will simply lose on scenarios. Like you won't 5-0.
That was my I've been wanting to talk with you about Fire Slayers because I mean I played them and I've looked at them a little bit and had that little freak out on Twitter where I was like they've got that and they've got that and they've got that and they've got all the rules with 30 Hearthguard Berserkers and you're like what the hell is going on here? But yeah, seeing these objectives today, okay, we can all breathe.
Right, like it's forcing me to revisit for like if I take Fire Slayers to Ashton, it's forcing me to revisit. Honestly, like I told Vince, like the question is, can I paint up 150 Nighthawk models? That's the real question. Because I mean, the answer really
yes, you can.
I mean, but you got to understand, like Paul, like they need to be up to like top tier competition quality for me. Because like if I'm going to go to an event, I'm going to compete in all spaces. Like that's part of my philosophy. And so like I'm not going to take something that's not painted well. And so I don't know. What I would say is that I think that Nighthaunt are going to be one of the go-to. Like I think it's going to be a hyper-competitive army. Like when built correctly, they can be wherever you want, whenever you want. And with the way the objective play is changing, I think that they are super, super enticing as an army.
I mean, look, I already gotten one Twitter feud this week over Nighthaunt viability coming to your defense. So
I saw, and Rob came to my defense too.
Well, that one seemed like, I mean, with the statistics, I don't know, like I don't know if this is right or not, but my general arm's length view on Nighthaunt had been that the statistics have been warped by a lot of people playing lists that were not top list that you would take to tournament to try to do extremely well. Lists with a lot of heroes, which generally were overpriced. Lists without enough body. I know that they've been struggling, but it just seems like a lot of the lists that I would see with Nighthaunt, they weren't what I would consider top Nighthaunt list.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that like they have the problem that like Korn has or Stormcast have that are like they're all like very readily accessible. Like so it's easy to get into the model line. It's easy. Right. It's often an early starter army. So I think that that's part of the problem in that like you just don't have hardcore people mixed in. Like, or let me say it this way, not that you mix in. You don't have like it's not like daughters. Like the only people that get into daughters are people who want to win, who are down to paint 190 naked women bodies.
I would say I clearly resent that remark, Tom. Yeah, I only have 20 painted witch elves.
Yeah, you have 20, but like you're not taking them to events like that. You're not a majority of the daughters players aren't that. That's not. That's not the community.
Yes, I understand. I took my daughters to maybe 3 events total, I think. Yeah, 3 events.
Right. It's much more diluted. The player base of the Nighthaunt player base with people who are not like hardcore.
Well, and also the problem was the incentive was just it was way better to use a lot of those components in LON for for this whole time. So there's not the same. Now this is the point that I made, and again I think that there was stuff that was still overcosted. I'm sure there were people who were giving it the college try and probably still coming up empty. But I do think that the points changes that were there were all quite positive, and this puts them on a better footing to be worth perhaps a little more exploration.
I mean, it opened up 160 points in my list.
So a few.
Yeah, I mean, yep. Like that's an entire unit or a hero and some endless spells.
It's not nothing.
I mean, it's not nothing. So yeah, I mean, I'm very positive about the Nighthaunt changes. I think that, and I think that the new world of mobility, like I think it's just going to be so important. So I'm excited. I think Death has a lot more, particularly like the Nighthaunt Legion of Grief. Those two, I think, both have gas in the engines. Ironically, because of the mercenary companies. Because I had discounted Legion of Grief because even though I could generate all of the command abilities or the command points in the world, because it's like if you want command point generation, Legion of Grief is your jam. Like it is one of the best command point generation machines in the game. Right.
Well, and somebody just took down an event with Legion of Grief. I don't like very.
Ben Saba.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, again, that's also like Ben is a really good player, right?
Ben
so,
is.
but
and he was already keyed to Nighthaunt. Like he took Nighthaunt to Masters. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But like as soon as he saw I was on the Legion of Grief Nighthaunt, like he immediately sent me a list. He's like, I'm claiming it.
Because he knew because if there's a list that you've ever even thought about and you see somebody playing it, you're gonna be like, that was mine, that was me, I did that.
And so he sent me a list and we began talking about it, and we were kind of brainstorming and like and kind of chewing on various options. And so I think that the Legion of Grief is solid. I had discounted it because even though I could generate like all the command points in the world, and we're in a new world where we're going to be command point starved in general.
Well, there'll be less. Starved is a stronger call yet, but there will be less.
But what I came away with was that like one of the key pieces that I wanted to have in my arsenal, which is the Vampire Lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that army,
on foot,
right?
Yes.
Well, Vampire Lord not on a zombie dragon, whatever.
Yeah. Yes, Vampire Lord on foot, and actually, like I'd love to have access to the Coven Throne as well, but that's not going to happen. But the Vampire Lord on foot can be grabbed with mercenaries.
Interesting.
And so you could pull that into the Legion of Grief to put all of those command points to use, all those free command points.
Is he in the like Necromancer one? No, he's in the Blood one, the Blood Knight one, right?
Yes, he's in the Blood Knight one. And so you like all you do is and you don't have to use Blood Knights. Like that's what they confirmed with the mercenaries, is that even though they like pitched them as like these formation battle, battalion like things, you can buy the elements individually.
Well, yeah, some of them, but they do have some requirements, right? Like I think some of them say like some of them I think do have a one of this thing.
Well,
like I believe in the Necromancers one, which is like Necromancer, zombies, skeletons. Yes. I'm pretty sure that one has to contain at least one Necromancer, and then everything else is quite optional.
Correct. You have to have the Necromancer, and that's the point. But you don't have to take anything else, so you can just take the Necromancer with nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the same as like with the giant one. It can be just one giant, which is stupid because then you literally can't benefit from their allegiance ability. But it could be one giant.
Yes. So, okay. Well, the point being that like now with mercenaries, because of how they kind of split the baby, what you end up having is Nighthaunt can grab Necromancers. So you can get triple piling in units. And Legion of Grief can now grab vampires.
Sure.
And so now like it increased the viability fairly significantly on both ends of the spectrum.
Have they backed the Vampire Lord to be wholly within, or is it still within for the +1 attack?
Still just within 15 inches. And so like that's why they're just superior. And they're all phases. So if you like look at that and compare it with like the Knight of Shrouds on Spectral Steed, he's wholly within and it's only in the combat phase. Where the Vampire Lord, when he hits you with that buff, like when you get your pile in the charge phase, you would get the extra tax there, and you'd get the extra tax in the actual hero or in the combat phase. And so he's just a superior version of the, and he's regenerating models to summonable units, and he's a wizard, that can throw Mystic Shield on somebody or use realm spells.
Right.
So I mean, he is a superior Knight of Shrouds. There's just no,
well, that's a low bar, to be fair.
It's true. I mean, they dropped the points on him. Like, I like that the Spectral Seed guy dropped to 120. That's pretty good.
No, it's good. That dude was always the definition of overcosted.
Yes. But you don't have a lot of survivable heroes in Nighthaunt, like at all. And so he's a 7 wound hero by default. So that's pretty, like, that's That's about as good as you get, ironically enough, in that faction.
Sure.
So I don't know. I like him. So I like that lineup. Like I said, I think the real magic is, and I think this is probably why Nighthaunt's still going to take it away, is the like Coven Throne. Like there's real like folks. I'm putting my stake down here now. Like there's real gas in the Coven Throne engine.
Somebody get Haywo Twitch on the line. In his latest show, he had to build like a narrative list that featured the Coven Throne, and you know, he was talking about it and you know wasn't rating it, is what I would say. So, all right, let's hear the defense of the Coven Throne.
So he's out of his damn mind.
Okay, you've been called out, Haywo.
So here's the deal. So let's start with it is like it's a 12 wound hero. Okay. So for all these like taking objective, a high mobility 12 wound hero.
Yeah, it flies and moves what,
Yep.
10 inches a foot, something like that, right?
Yep. And it's not a monster, so it can gain benefits of cover.
Sure.
And it's regenerating, like it has the vampire or the normal like.
Yeah, it doesn't regen a lot, but it can get like 1 or 2 wounds back. Sure.
Yep. Well, no, it can give not healing. Sorry, it does heal if it's killing models.
Oh,
But
it has deathly invocation.
Yes, it can invocation and restore summonable models.
And
so
it's three different units is what it restores, which is, you know, pretty decent number in the realm of.
Yes. Yep.
It you know, the various heroes each restore some different number of summonable units, right?
Yes.
So like your vampire lord does what, 2, right? The guy on foot. Yeah.
Yes. You know, as just a neat kind of side ability. I'm starting with the weak stuff, not the good stuff. It can like it can re-roll a die, any die once per game.
For itself, yes.
Yeah, for itself. So it has that neat ability. But really, where the gas in the engine is there, like originally, what attracted me was its command ability.
Sure, because it has the it basically has the Chaos Sorcerer spell as a command ability. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. You choose a unit for an entire until your next turn. That unit re-rolls hit rolls of 1, wound rolls of 1, and save rolls of 1.
Right.
And you know, like let's walk down a theoretical pot. Like let's throw it on something like, I don't know, Hex Wraiths, right? Who are getting an asinine number of attacks, hitting and wounding, re-rolling hits of wounds of 1, and having a 4-up invulnerable save that's 4-up now re-roll 1s.
Sure.
In a metric meat ton of wounds in that unit, just simply because it's their 2 wound models.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love the command ability, and I love that, especially when I'm stacking like bonus attacks on Hex Wraiths. Like there's some real gas there. But that's not where it ends. Like before, like that's originally why I put it in my list. But then I began like reading back through and thinking about the meta and the tech that it brings. So its Beguile spell, can make it so that it can't be targeted. Like if it rolls over the morale, the bravery of its like spellcasting target.
Sure.
It can't be targeted, even though it can be in combat and use that spell.
Yep. Sure.
So, like a Gristlegore General.
The problem is the range, but I understand what you mean. Sure.
Or a Fire Slayer Death Star.
Sure, like you could, if you can hit, you like getting it. The problem is the bravery test, obviously. Now,
it's
notably,
you're beating like 8s.
I understand.
7s and 8s.
I get it.
Or 10s on the Gristlegore.
Sure, yeah. That's what's. But I mean, the GG problem is he's already come in and done a bunch of work. But yes, you could beguile him and then just walk up to him and engage him in combat, and he cannot hurt you. Then, right? Like you have shut him off.
You are immune to him. Yes.
Right, which is an interesting thing because I mean the thing does a bunch of attacks. None of them are super good, but it makes like 25 different attacks, so it can probably wound him, and make it so he can't attack back, which is fun.
It's about neutering key pieces. It's about.
I've been about Beguile forever. Yes. I love the first time we read this way back in the day, years ago on a show. I said Beguile was the real power of this thing. The problem is it's always been overpriced. What did it drop down to now? It did get like did it get an adjustment? I don't remember. Or is it still at 260, something like that?
It's 240. No, it's 260. Sorry, it stayed the same.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if it was 240, I would really love it. I know that sounds silly, but it's not the end of the world, obviously, but it just feels still a little high. But
Yeah,
I get it. No, I like the idea. Like the Hearthguard Berserker pin is a wonderful play. And
because
obviously
the key
you
is-
can use their tactical insight reroll die or whatever the heck that's not what it's called. Whatever the reroll die thing is called. The scrying pool. You use it to reset one of the die of the bravery. If you miss the bravery on a key, like if you roll the 3d6 and you get like 1-1-6 and you're aiming at a 9 or something, or 1-1-5 and you're aiming at an 8, right? Whatever.
Yes.
You get what I mean, right? Something like that. You would clearly just use that there to pick up the 1 and then almost automatically nail it, right? Or whatever. You get what I mean.
The key is you do it in any event, like any sort of, like anywhere in that chain of failure.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So like in the spellcasting chain, like if you really need to get it off, or the bravery chain, or the charge, or any of those things, like whatever, like wherever you need it to perform, you can say, okay, no, I'm going to reroll that.
Nothing those in the HGB Death Star, nothing is giving them retreat and charge ever, right?
No, they cannot get retreat and charge. And so you could keep them pinned down.
Well, just even taking them out of the fight for 2 rounds, because assumingly they're going to try to retreat and walk away from her, and then like hope that she doesn't get the spell off again and they can be put back into play. But and let's assume at that point they then killed her, or a Hearthguard shoot her down, or something else goes afoul. Sure. I would argue that taking that Hearthguard Berserker Death Star basically out of play for even like 1 full battle round or a battle round and a half or something like that is 260. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you like that is an unbelievable amount of value you just stripped right away from them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I think the Coven Throne, and the interesting thing is you can fit a Coven Throne and a Vampire Lord into allies. Like they are 400 points. And so Night Haunt's like, come on over.
Sure.
Water's fine. So yeah.
Well, I have a Tomb King's Coven Throne, Tom.
Okay.
I'm just saying for your I don't know if you're doing your Night Hunt a long time ago you started talking about hex rates and that kind of scheme, so I don't know if you were still doing
like I'm gonna do it's gonna be in a classic, actually like a Bretonian-esque style. It'll be like a high knight is what I'm gonna do the hex rates. I'm gonna do them like I'm gonna pull some of the bits over from the whatever it's called, the knights, the black knights that they share a kit with. I'll do the lances, and then I'm going to pull the sheet. I'm going to actually use, I think, actual Bretonian and Empire shields.
Knights. Yeah, boy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that. There's a tornado warning in this area from 11 till 11:30 p.m. Take shelter now.
Well, you're in the basement, so you're fine.
No, I'm in the main floor. Let me look into that.
Tornado warning. Should probably look into that. Yeah. So, with all of the points changes and everything that we've seen, did anything jump out to you guys that like, oh, this army was not that viable before, and it's going to be a lot better now, or vice versa? Like, did anything get really nerfed, or did anything get really buffed?
I think Tzeentch is pretty interesting. I mean, Tzeentch, I thought, was among the list that was a little undervalued.
Yeah, I think they got brought back into the land of like sanity after the overcorrection. Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, there's been some folks doing pretty well. I mean, top players who've been playing Tzeentch a lot have been doing pretty well with them. I've seen some very strong Tzeentch lists that are not that well known, that can do some work.
Sure, not just Enlightened.
Yeah, not just Enlightened. Yeah, obviously. And yeah, they got a number of drops that should make an impact. What else?
I don't know that any change was big enough to say that happened, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
as I said, maybe like Stormcast got hit harder than some because of those changes. But again, I don't know that it's not like they got pushed out of whatever past for viability they had before, you know?
Mhm.
I can't decide how I feel on them. Like some of their good pieces are gone, but some pieces that maybe were always interesting are now in the mix again. So they're probably fine.
Yeah. Thing that I have not seen anybody talk about yet is Vanguard Raptors with long strike crossbows dropped.
Yeah, I did see that.
I mean, people aren't talking about it, but I think that we might have some. I think we might have some really interesting Vanguard lists. Vanguard, like we've had some Vanguard Anvil Guard lists show up, and I think that like all of the points just got reduced.
Yep.
To get stronger.
Yeah.
That whole chamber just suddenly got better.
Yes.
Yeah, Palador's 180. That's kind of where I think where they should have been all along. But yeah, they're really solid at 180.
Yeah. Again, in the game of movement, they have some interesting options. They're still relatively they're actually relatively offensive. I think people often underrate them. I'm not saying they're like the end all be all. They're not even close, but they're fine for that kind of points cost.
Yeah.
Mobility plus the level of offense, 180 felt better. They never should have been 200, but here we are.
So I'm gonna have to leave here in just a few minutes. A couple of things. So Bug Eater happened about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first event in a long time where I'd actually brought a list intended to be reasonably competitive rather than silly lists that I've not played much and I'm probably not going to do a whole lot. And so that was interesting, and I hadn't really gone to many events kind of with that mindset of trying to compete on top tables, and haven't really had a good sense of what the landscape looked like. I've been a little surprised at what seems to have been a lack. Actually, honestly, in my opinion, a lack of discussion about the impact of the ASL and ASF, always strike first, always strike last, in the meta. Like one of the few times that I've heard it come up thoughtfully, where there was some nuanced discussion about it, was in the show with Rob that you guys did.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I mean, from
there's a lot of discussion about it. You're asking for something different because people have certainly been talking about it. I know what you mean.
But yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, that
discussion versus thoughtful discussion.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it again, having not been in a competitive mindset for a long time now, I don't really trust my opinions on these things, but it does seem like it had an outside, one of my favorite terms, an outsized impact on the game. That it had the sort of this long tail of consequences to competitive list writing and AOS. Is that reasonable?
Yes, but mainly through something like Grizzlegore, because that's, despite all the discussion, that's probably your biggest offender. Most of the other things that play around in this space have some kind of limitation or can be shut down or have some kind of natural stop to them. That is to say, like, there are ways to stop the bloodthirsters from doing it. There are ways to you can shoot off the hero. You can very easily sort of multi-charge Slanesh heroes. Like everybody talks about Slanesh. But like if everything except the Greater Demon is on a 4-up, and if they roll and fail, that's it. You can't roll on that unit again. Like you cannot target a unit more than once.
Right.
And if like the easiest way to kill a Slanesh hero or a Slanesh thing that's locust to you is to just multi-charge it. Right? Because they're only going to be able to shut off one of those things. And then if they can't kill the others, then if they can't kill it all, which by the way, they're not that deadly.
Hey, folks.
They'll get hit.
I'll be back in a little bit.
Okay. Don't die, Tom.
Yeah.
Tornado sirens, the whole deal is going off, man. And so yeah, I'm gonna look into that. I'll be back, man.
All right.
But I think the if Big GG hadn't been in the mix, would everybody consider this the same level of problem, or would it just be opening a new avenue of exploration in game design?
That's what I've been, and that's kind of the thoughtful piece of it that I've been trying to figure out without having a lot of games. I mean, I've played quite a few games locally against Fleshy Nut Courts, and yeah, it's strong. but it would go down to a lot of shooting. Like I've seen it fall over against Ambles, for example.
Oh, sure.
But when I look at Slanesh, yeah, it seems like it's going to definitely be tier 1. I mean, I have no idea. I haven't really sat down and looked at these new scenarios yet. Obviously, that's going to have a significant impact on list writing and the meta and so on. But the Slanesh has limitations when I sit down and look at it.
So you think so? Like being an army of things with a 5-up save and that's it? Yeah,
exactly.
I would say so.
I'm hearing a fair number of folks who are really worried about Slanesh, like it's too strong, blah, blah, blah. I don't really see it. It seems solidly tier 1, but it has problems. Fire Slayers, I was worried about that, but now Fire Slayers with these new scenarios, that gives me a lot more confidence that they're not going to be able to get by with just 30 Hearthguard that you can't kill, that are going to blow you up and blah, blah, blah. Like that's probably not going to be an answer. So they're going to have to get a little bit more creative in their list writing. And
yeah, I mean, Death Stars have never been a good answer in AOS ever.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning, that was never a good answer. Because AOS has always been more based on a lot of movement, on being able to project power to multiple places, to be able to hold down multiple spots. And that's still very much the case in the new scenarios. Yeah. And, HGB, that big block is super scary. Like there's probably nothing in the game that can kill it. You know what I mean? Like it's just...
well, the best one, the most powerful combat unit, which elves have no shot.
No, I mean a Gristlegore general will bounce and then they'll smash him into pieces.
Right.
Like he's that block is for all intents and purposes immune to combat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like,
and part of the problem was that the heroes, like I was, talking with Tom a little bit, and I was asking him about, can you shoot the heroes? And he was like, well, there's this and there's this and there's this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, lovely. That's good to know. So you can't even necessarily try to take out the heroes unless you have a really heavy shooting list.
Yeah, you can a little, but sure, exactly. You've got to be able to put heat into them.
Right.
But again, like would just Hermdar doing it or whichever one it is, I think it's Hermdar that does it. Yeah. And would Slanesh's like forcing people to sort of go last or those kinds of things, would that kind of stuff break the world if that's all it was, and Big GG wasn't leading the way and sort of poisoning the waters?
Yeah. And
my answer is, I think no. I think things like the Bloodthirster thing is over-designed, right? Like they keep having a good idea and then like stacking 3 more things that didn't need to be there on top of it, right?
Sure.
Like having that guy be able to sort of go in and do that and fight as he could is fine, because in fact, let's even talk about GG for a minute, okay? GG wouldn't if Gristlegore's ability was this general fight's the start of the combat phase, okay, and their command ability wasn't fight again, okay,
right,
and or he didn't have the mortal wound trigger on a 6, and or he didn't have the ability to re-roll the hits on the maw with a free mount trait, right? If this thing hadn't stacked. Yeah. Right, like just the fight at the start of combat. Like I know everybody, we all talk about the activation wars, and good Lord knows Rob knows is on a tear about this. He can't go 5 minutes without mentioning it. I love the man. He loves dropping that. What are they going to do in the activation wars? I don't know, man. Probably just fight, because most armies don't fight like that. You're talking about one force and then broadcasting to everybody else. Love you, Rob. But my answer is, let's just assume it said he fought first and the command ability was like, pick a single weapon not used by a mount that on a unit, you get +1 to hit and wound with that weapon. So maybe it was something like or the unit gets +1 to hit and wound with that weapon. So it looked something like a broader targeting version of what Prince Vorterai has, right? Yeah. Where he could use it on himself for just the ghoul's crappy attacks, or he could go through it on a ghoul unit and give it to them or something, right? But he couldn't give it to mounts. Let's say it was that, and let's say he didn't, and the dumb bitey maw was just like, instead of doing mortals, it just didn't have that ability because it doesn't need it, like,
or even price D6 instead of 6.
Sure, or like whatever, something, what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're right. It's a lot of things. It's potentially Chalice as well.
Sure, absolutely.
And,
If all that wasn't in the way, then everybody would just be like, cool, it's a pretty strong dude that fights the start of combat.
Right.
it's not just the start of combat activation. It's when the start of combat activation gets piled on, right? When you can take the Death Star HGBs and make them fight at the start. When you can take the Bloodthirster, make him fight at the start, and then bring his 2 buddies with him. You know, like what I don't understand is why, when we just dipped our toe in this space, we just jumped in with both feet, right? Because we could have just started exploring this a little bit with like, oh, here's kind of an ability to fight here, but that's it. It's just kind of this thing fights and it does it once and it does this and it's relatively controlled space. And I think everybody would just be like, okay, that's kind of a neat counterbalance, right? So that is my answer. Like we haven't. I don't know that we have properly identified the sickness and not a symptom. Fair?
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, okay. Just trying to, I'm just curious because I haven't been on many shows or talking to many people about this stuff. Talked a little bit with Brendan about some of these things and our local guys. The meta seemed to be in a reasonably decent place. I mean, when I saw Skaven, like everybody else, like, WTF, what the hell is going on here? This is extraordinarily problematic. What happened to our playtesters? What happened to, what the hell happened? Gristlegore, I mean, Blister Skin's really strong, but okay, it's probably manageable. I mean, Ideneth has been out there for quite a while with the strength and the bad play experience for a lot of lists and players, even going to tournaments, of getting slammed into by 18 ills that are always strike first and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, I mean, Daughters took too long to get somewhat corrected. I really like actually what they did with Daughters with the light touch approach, as we talked about Vince. They didn't go overboard, and they easily maybe passed precedent what said you would think that they would have gone a little overboard with the reaction to Daughters, but it still took too long, I think, to, at least for my taste, to address them a little bit. A lot of these things like could have been addressed earlier that require moderate touch. I don't know. Just some of these things still. I guess it is still that side of me that's like, it's not about being perfect, but there's so much opportunity for good that takes modest adjustments that are still not happening quickly enough. And I don't quite get it, and especially when you have something like Skaven and Infect that drops and really screws things up for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, ultimately my answer with Skaven and Infect is if they get fixed in 2 weeks, I'm going to go, okay, fine.
Sure.
You know, like I feel like that was fixed in a reasonable-ish amount of time. I would have liked it maybe a month sooner. Sure.
That's fair. I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, like my in general, I think the game should be fixed in 6-month increments, but you need the you need the emergency button that should be about a quarter. Right. Yeah. I don't know that I'd want to see them act any faster than 3 months, because then you could really get overreactions. Right.
No. Yeah. And I've definitely been like, I was, our chat evocators, like when they came out, like what the hell, like these things are silly at 200 and 20 sequiturs, what you can do with that. Like that was an overreaction. I mean, it didn't take too long to realize that, but it wasn't thinking enough about Stormcast in the context of a multiple objective based game, etc. Like they have more inherent limitations that generally make those reasonable at the point values that they were, and certainly at what they are now. Right. But so overreactions, they happen all the time. So that's very fair. You need to have a decent timeline to mitigate that.
And also just putting into context too that there's GW designing these rules. They have a long view. They know what books are coming next. Sure. They know what abilities are coming next. So I think something like the evocators seemed like they were really, really strong when that book hit. Right. And then look at everything else that came after, and now they seem pretty reasonable.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I was just curious. I'm going to run here. But...
That's not even throwing in Skaven and Gristlegore into the mix, right?
Yeah.
My particular guess on Skaven and GG. Skaven being, by the way, I actually don't think Skaven as an army are a problem. I think Rat Trap is sort of the VX gas that needs to be uninvented.
Yeah, the Vortex and Shackles combo, and
And I think that basically the rest is just literally points adjustments. Like it's just things were too cheap. It's just like Monk
Yes.
should be more expensive. The Warp Shear should be more expensive. Like,
Great
and
Sarah.
people talk about like the Battle Shock immunity with chaff.
Yeah.
When somebody complains about the Battle Shock immunity with the rats, I'm like, I see you never played Skaven historically, because like, welcome to how Skaven, right? Welcome to Skaven's literal existence since they were incepted in the 90s, right? When it was like blocks of rats that were very hard to shift. That was why 8th Skaven army was like big blocks of Skaven slaves that were near rebel and had rerollable leadership 10 that could never be modified, basically, right? So they were just unbreakable, or as close as you could get mathematically to that, right? And things around the sensor would frenzy and be unbreakable until they were beaten in combat and blah, 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 blah. Like, yes, that's always been their thing because they have crap troops. Now, is there like probably some keyword bingo or restrictions that should have happened there and didn't? Like, should Vigor Dust Injector should have been more restricted? Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to disagree that shouldn't have happened. It should have.
Yeah.
But if you readjust all the points and kill the rat trap, does that become a problem? Is it like, oh, because of Vigor Dust Injector, the game's broken? No, obviously not. Like that's not. We've got to keep in mind some kind of like level of magnitude here, right?
Right.
Not everything can be a 4-alarm fire. We can't sound the tornado warning every time it gets a little windy out to reference Tom's scenario, right? Like, yes, those things could have been better. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. It did certainly seem to have this impact of widening the gap between the middle class, as I like to refer to it, the majority relative to the top. Like beginning of the year, we were in a great place. I think beginning of the year, end of 2018, we were in the best place that we'd ever been in with the game.
You were seeing such an outrageously large number of different lists. Top 10ing, right?
Working man's dream, middle class dream. Absolutely, it was incredible. And then Feck and Skaven, and it's like then it. And I know we've been in this transition period with these new books coming out, but I don't know. That's the other side of this equation. That's just haven't heard a lot of discussion of. Is this feeling of the gap being larger than it certainly had been, and unnecessarily large, and maybe again, it's just
it most certainly has. No doubt about it, right? Like that it has widened. Yes, absolutely. But counterpoint, you can also fix it. Like I mentioned the affinity period. I said, this will just be written off as the affinity period if they fix it. Right. So like Magic had this dark time when they released the original Mirrodin block or whatever, where they made this mechanic called affinity. And it was way too stupid good. And it wasn't just the mechanic, though. That it parallels in a lot of ways, right? Because like affinity is what everybody saw as the problem. But the problem wasn't just affinity, which basically made things way too cheap, way too fast. It was also the fact that there were too many artifacts that were already too cheap that affinity brought down to basically zero. There was lands that you could drop for free that counted as artifacts. There was cranial plating that could be switched at like instant speed. So if even one of your monsters got through to the opponent, they died instantly. Right? Because all you needed was one thing to get through. So you had this horrible combination of things, right? You label it as affinity in your mind as the activation wars, but it was the same story. It wasn't just that happened. It was the stacking, right, of all of these things going wrong simultaneously. Right. And at that point, the meta warped horribly, where like 80% of the decks were affinity in tournaments, like 80% of the decks were affinity decks, and 20% were anti-affinity decks.
Right.
Like I'm rounding up slightly, but not much.
Yeah. And that's certainly been the feeling of every conversation begins with, activation wars, or what are you going to do about Gristlegore? What are you going to do about Gristlegore? How are you going to go against Skaven? Yeah, I'm so goddamn tired of that. And thinking about it.
We all are, and hopefully we're only a few precious weeks away now.
I got to run.
All shut up.
Some friends and I are going to go see The Dead Don't Die, so I've got to run here. But to be continued.
Sounds good.
And I want to talk with you both sometime about more about Magic the Gathering and why is it so good at getting AOS players. transitioning from it, because we have had a huge influx of MTG players into AOS who are loving AOS.
Oh, good. Well, nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's probably something to do with the building competitive scene, but happy to talk it through.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to learn more about MTG and all that. All right, guys, have a good night.
Take it easy, man.
Yeah,
So,
I think,
Paul, you've been playing with your new contrast paints, right? Go ahead. You want to make a point about this, and then I want to talk to you about what you think of contrast paints.
yeah,
You
just
haven't talked about it.
point on Skaven. I think the crux of the problem, even if you take out the Warp Lightning Vortex,
Sure.
I think Skaven's still outrageously good right now.
It is, absolutely. And it will always be strong because it has an outrageously deep bench. But you can repoint it so that the army has to make actual choices. That's what it's not doing right now. Right? Like right now, the army is just going, well, I can have everything I want.
Yeah, most of the time you build an army list, and it's like this was the problem that I had, with my phase of trying to build Stormcast lists. It's like, oh, this is a great tool, Pox army, but I cannot put all the tools in one list ever.
Sure. Nurgle was well balanced in this way, where like you had to make real choices, right?
Right. Yeah, and I still love the Nurgle book. I still love playing my Nurgle.
I think Nurgle is overall a quite well designed book.
Yes.
Well, I should also state that when you look at the actual books, if you're just going by, if you literally just built it on book count, we've had a lot more winners than duds, right? Like the vast majority of the books that have come out have been actually quite good.
Yeah, they've overall been doing a really good job. The Beasts of Chaos book is definitely really good. The
Beast is good, Gits is good, Corn is good, right? I think like again, Ineth could be fixed largely by points. I think the book is fine. Nurgle's good, all this kind of stuff. Even Doc is a great book. It just has one really glaring significant issue.
Yeah. Right. And it would be great if they could just go basically unmake Hagnar, right?
Right. Look, guys, we made this thing. That was a mistake. It doesn't work like that anymore. Now it just, all it does, like get rid of the extra defense, and now it advances you one step on the table or something for units that are wholly within 14 inches or 12 inches. Great. Done and dusted. Okay, cool. Fine.
Yep. But yeah, contrast paints. I think, quickly finding what these things are good for and what they're not so good for.
Okay.
So I am working. I'm doing like a whole year of contrast. And I'm also a priest that's going to sit on the front of the plague furnace. Everything with the monks is coming out fantastic. It's like exactly what I would want contrast paint to be doing.
Sure.
Everything on the larger scale on like the plague furnace, it's just like not quite getting the quality that I would want out of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's my general feeling, is like I was, on like the big plague sensor on the plague furnace. I did that whole thing in like the warp lightning contrast. I'm like, this should give me the effect that I want on this. Make it a cool color. It's a color named after Skaven stuff. This should look really good. And I'm just looking at it. I'm like, this is really actually a pretty flat looking color. I feel like I need to go back in and dry brush it and, pick things out and do more shading with it. And like, it's a good, like, vibrant green, but it's not really doing the contrast trick very well.
Sure. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to play around with it.
On the plague monks, it's just like I'm just like banging out robes like nobody's business, and it's basically just working like a thicker shade, and that's exactly
like
what I want.
a more effective shade, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I can
Nice.
instead of doing like 2 coats of on green shade, whatever it is. I'm blanking on it now. Authorian can. Like instead of doing like 2 coats of that, I'm doing like 1 coat of Militarum green right there.
Sure. No, seems good. I'll obviously be playing around with it some pretty soon. I want to put it through different paces and try it over various zenithals, and like I've understood that some of the colors are much stronger than others. Like they're not sort of universally covering. Like I heard the Futhan red or whatever it is like really, really intense, so that kind of stuff.
The Blood Angels red as well is very intense. I went out with the kids today to our shop, tried a bunch of the colors, and then picked up a handful of them. So, yeah.
Nice.
It's nice. It has some of the ones that we tried had a really good coverage. I could definitely see both using them as functionally like 3D watercolors for my kids.
Sure.
Where they just in painting models, it's a very just straightforward process, and it covers and does what they needed to. Or I can also see very technical uses of it. So,
yeah, I see that it in general it's going to be very good for new painters throwing paint on models and getting them to a reasonable tabletop quality pretty quickly. It's going to be good for certain things, like I'm speed painting Plague Monks with them. I think it's going to be great for doing stuff like that, where you have I've got to bang through 80 models and they're mostly this one color, and I can just slap 1 coat of paint on the majority of the model and get through it. And then I think there's going to be some interesting technical things that you can do with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because they said that when I was talking to the chemist or whatever, he said that a lot of the heavy metal painters, what they've been doing with it is just using it to quickly establish their base color, and then they just paint like normal over top. You know what I'm saying? They're just using it to quickly establish a bunch of initial rough sort of color sketches that has some level of contrast to it, but then they go in and do all their normal work over top. So it's a more efficient means of base coating for them, basically, right?
Yes. What I would warn against, though, I saw on Twitter somebody who was talking about it said that basically be careful after you use your contrast paint, because if you try to dry brush over top, it can literally just wipe off the contrast paint.
Correct. And this is not so if you go back and watch, I mean, I'm not saying you, Tom, I'm saying if anybody goes back and watches when I talked about it at Warhammer Fest, okay, literally when I walked out and did the Warhammer Fest reveal, one of the things I say is you will have to use their varnish on it, or varnish it in some way, because the chemist was very clear that the paint, because of the way it settles and stretches, is much thinner. It's an order of magnitude thinner at the molecular level than your normal paint. There's some kind of measurement, 4 micron something. And a normal paint is 100 is what it settles at, or 200, depending on its thickness, right? And this stuff is 4. Okay. So your normal paint is 25 times thicker on the model than this is at that sort of, that kind of zoomed in level. And so that varnish is pretty critically important. Yes.
So the idea would be that after you've done your kind of base coat in contrast, just hit it with a varnish real quick.
I would assume. Look, I mean, for some people that's probably weird. They're like, varnishing mid work. What? This girl I'm working on right now, I have varnished her, I would say 8 times so far in the middle of painting this model. Because I'll work on her a bunch. What's that?
What are you working on right now?
I am working on my Golden Demon piece for 2020. I am working on the counterpart to the Bloodthirster that I showed on the show this week.
So is it gonna be like a dual piece?
It will.
Fabulous. I like that idea.
I was talking to somebody else today who has another big like I was excited about this, and then I was talking to somebody else who's planning a big piece, and I was like, man, I hope you're going to do a diorama and not a duel. Because because they're going for something even more over the top than what I'm doing. And they're a very good artist.
Nice.
But at any rate, they were very clear about that. It's fragile. It is a very fragile paint. Like, that was direct from the chemist's mouth. It is a fragile paint. So there you go.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to have some feel bads for some people.
Sure.
Yeah. If they don't know what they're doing, it will be a problem.
Well, especially when they're marketing this paint to people that don't know what they're doing.
Right. That's the big challenge here, right? Like, we've started with the marketing on this being it's for total new people, and like new people aren't going to slide over their airbrush like I would and just throw down a quick coat of AK Interactive Ultra Matte, right?
Right. I don't know. I think it's going to be a good tool in the arsenal.
Well, that's all it could ever be. Well, I don't mean that in any negative way. I just mean, like, it's paint. Right? Like, it's not magic. It was never going to be sorcery, but it could be a useful product like anything else. I have 100 useful products I am surrounded by right now. Some are more useful than others. Some I use quite a lot. Some I use quite rarely. That doesn't mean they're not useful. In fact, some of them that I use extremely rarely are still very useful. It's just they're only useful in a limited number of cases, but I still find them very useful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I've never, obviously I have a problem. We all know that I buy too many paints. We're not shocking anybody here. Okay. I got like word that my scale 75, like heavy body acrylics are going to ship soon or whatever. And I was like, oh, got to find room for those. Like, I clearly need another paint rack and I am out of wall space here. So I don't know where those are going, but like, tools are tools. It's cool.
Yep. And that's, I think, it seems like some people are not getting that it's just another tool.
Well, I mean, that's partially because people like to build up hopes that there is some secret. There's nothing new to that. People treat like brushes in the same way. Like, oh, if you get, a Winsor Newton Series 7, suddenly you're going to be the greatest painter in the world. Do I think you should have a Series 7 or a RAF 8404 or a Scarf or a Da Vinci or something? Yes, I absolutely do. You should have a couple of them. They should absolutely be part of your painting arsenal. And will they improve your painting if used in the proper ways? Yeah, of course. Will they solve all of your problems? No, because you don't need them for the vast majority of your work. And, you still need to learn brush control and you still need to learn everything else. But they're good tools to have.
Right. So I'm curious, Vince, because you talk to a lot of other, professional painters and avid painters in general. Like,
Sure.
you talk about having a paint problem. Like, is that a problem common amongst avid painters, or do you just have a particular affinity for buy all the paints?
No, I have a particular affinity. I think paints are fun. I like playing with different colors. I like starting from different tones. So I find interesting colors interesting. Different paints have slightly different properties, which, depending on what I'm in the mood for, that will have value to me. Like, depending on what I'm trying to accomplish, I'll often execute very different styles with what I'm trying to do, and certain paints are simply better at certain styles than others. But I just like having a lot of paints. I love looking on the walls around me and seeing all the paints. I mean, part of it is undoubtedly some kind of psychotic hoarding obsession. No doubt.
Got it. So there's like a lot of other painters will be more along the lines of like, oh, this is like the line of paints that I really like and I'm loyal to, and I make it work.
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
I don't know if there are many
a fairly
painters.
accurate statement, you think?
I don't know that there are many painters that are like really, really loyal to one line of paint. Like I assume you're asking like pro or competition painters or whatever that means, right? So I don't know that there's that many that are like super loyal to a particular paint line. I mean, there are some, but like there are certainly, everybody has kind of their favorite stuff. Some people I know, like, I mean, some of these people I know personally, some of these people I don't. You look at somebody like Kirill Kanayev, who does, you know, some of the most amazing work in the world, and he tends to work in mostly like Reaper, you know, Reaper paint, like Reaper MSP, right? Just because I think he likes it, he likes how it acts, and he's used to it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's anything magical about Reaper MSP, and I don't think he thinks that either. You look at somebody like Angel Giraldes, who works with Vallejo a lot. Well, he tends to use a lot of Vallejo, you know, because he works with that company and they supply him paint. So there you go, right? That's a pretty good reason. But I think for the most part, and then I know painters who don't use much in the way of miniature paints at all, except for base coats, and do most of the rest of their work in heavy body acrylics, or do maybe the whole thing in heavy body acrylics. They work from an artist palette, so they work from 5 colors, mix everything. Right. The artist palette is, you know, Trey Chic if you want to be a cool kid. You know, that's just red, white, blue, white, or sorry, yeah, red, yellow, blue, white, black. And then technically you will often have like magenta in there, depending. You might use the 6 color palette, which is, you know, the magenta cyan palette instead. But and then white and black. So, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of different takes on it. There is as many takes on it as there are artists. I think I tend to be more interested in different kinds of paints and the properties of different paints than most. But in the end, I think there are paints that are in general a little better depending on the average paint style. But for the most part, if you've found a paint you like, it's fine. The only exception being metallic paints, where if you're using anything except Vallejo metal color, you're doing it wrong.
You know, I actually had thought of a possible counterpoint to that I just wanted to run by out of curiosity.
Sure, go ahead.
This is strictly as just like a thought experiment that I'm throwing out there. I'm like, what is a possible counter argument to this? Because Vince is clearly very adamant about it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your choice in metallic paints is very much leaning on the realism that the paint conveys when you use it. Is that accurate?
In the case of metals, yes, because okay, yes, you're absolutely right. In the case of metals, that's not true for matte paint, because orange paint, okay, is not meant to represent a thing in the world. Yeah. Orange paint is meant to be orange paint. Point to me what in the world the orange paint is meant to represent. Well, you can say
what material. Like, it's not like there's a paint that's like plaid.
Right, exactly. Yes. If you had a paint that was plaid, if you poured it out of the bottle and it made like a tartan pattern, but then it came out and didn't look like a tartan pattern, I would judge it by how accurately it poured tartan pattern out of the box, right? Yeah. Metal is a thing in the world. It has properties. It looks a certain way. If we're going to use metal paints, they should be pretty good at acting like metal. Or looking like metal, sorry. Not acting like metal.
Right. So I guess my thought experiment counterpoint to this would be that all of the things that we're doing in miniature painting is not, it is some sort of, I just lost the word that I was looking for.
Like approximation, a simulacrum of it.
Yeah. And it's all to some extent stylized.
Sure.
So what if the concept of using those metallic paints makes sense in that universe of it being stylized.
Well, my answer is it's not just that that Vallejo metal color looks more like metal, which it does. It's also that those metal paints are just bad as paints. They're not only bad at being metal in most cases, they're bad at being
Their
paint.
pigmentation is terrible.
Yeah, their pigment is not finely ground. They have like, it's very visible. It creates bumps and uneven surfaces on your model. It is jelly and hard to apply. It's somehow, even though it's full of completely opaque, solid pigment, transparent in most cases. And you have to like either undercoat with a particular color or apply multiple coats of the stupid crap. You know, there are a few exceptions, things like Retributor armor are pretty strong and stuff like that. But even then, it's not perfect. Whereas Vallejo metal color has none of those problems. Its pigment is hyper dense. That part of that is it looks like metal. The other part of it is it creates a wonderfully smooth surface that you can then apply other effects to quite easily. You know, like, so the question was asked in the chat was, are new GW metals released any better? They're better than their old ones. Like Retributor armor is probably is much better than any of their previous gold paints, which were basically glitter paste. You could get the same effect by going to a craft store, buying gold glitter and putting it in PVA glue and water. And that was effectively any old, the previous GW metals. But it's, so that would be my argument there, Paul. Like if we're talking about being stylized, cool, paint non-metallic metal. That's stylized metal.
Right.
Right. But if we're gonna in any way, we want the paint, it fails at being metal and at being paint.
Understood. So I would just like, you know, just to drive you up a wall, currently working on this and painting it in Balthazar gold.
Yeah, sure, man.
Hey, like, I'm gonna be honest. I like the GW golds. Like, I know that Vince hates them, but all of my golds, like, I don't like the Vallejo metal golds. They're not like rich enough for me. They're not gold enough. They're not warm enough.
Well, that's because you don't use the gold straight out of the pot. You're supposed to mix it with the copper.
I know, with copper, and I've tried that, and I don't like the color that it generates.
Well,
It's insane to me.
I think Vince is just going to tell you that you're wrong.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
it's an aesthetic thing. Like, I can't argue with, I don't like the look of it. Like, okay. I mean, nor do I, like, I also...
Don't get me wrong. I would love to have the flow and the coverage and all that of Vallejo metal.
I understand.
Like,
There is absolutely the case, you know, Tom, that I agree with you here, that I wish Vallejo metal color golds had the same range as their steel colors, right?
Yeah.
If that was the world we lived in, if there was like 16 different shades of gold,
totally.
oh my God, like, come on, I would be in heaven. I would out in a second row.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, because like I have like 6 of the silvers or whatever. Like, I love it. I love what they have and what they do, and the variation there between, like, just, it's so good. But the gold's just not there. And like, even with the mixing and stuff like that, like if I could get a mix that would generate that same, like, just lustrous sheen, that warmth.
I don't know, man. 3 gold to 1 copper is pretty great for me. But
I've tried. It's all green and weird and shit.
It's not green. It's not green when you mix in the copper. At any rate, doesn't matter. I get it. There's a tone you like, and it has it, and this doesn't. And you fair. Fine.
Yep. So,
I accept that in the golds because of the innate limitation of the number of colors in the set. If I see somebody using a different steel, other than like, I'll accept using scale 75 steels. That was Banshee designed those, and they're the only one that get like a passing grade. Like if I had to grade all these, Vallejo metal color in acrylics, obviously, because you can go outside and like Alclad too and stuff like that. That's a totally different ball game. But in acrylics, Vallejo metal color A+, Vallejo, or not Vallejo, scale 75 steel set B, still a B, passing grade. You know what I mean? You nice 3.0 GPA, you're fine. You're not losing your scholarship probably. And Everything else F. Failing grade. In steels. So there you go.
Love me some metal color. I'm not gonna lie.
What I find interesting is that GW, from the perspective of, paint connoisseur, they fail so hard at metallics, which I would think would be along the same sorts of like chemistry lines that like their technical paints would be, like their shades and other technical stuff, which you seem to be a fan of.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I love their shades.
And to me, it baffles me that like
I have no idea why they have not made a version of Vallejo metal color yet. I don't know. They cannot be ignorant of it. They cannot be. It cannot be that insular in that building.
Right. And I don't think that it has, like, if they're producing something like the contrast paints and the shades and the various other technical paints that they use that are fantastic, like, why are their metallics so bad? Like, that seems like that would be an obvious space that they could excel in.
I have no good answer for you, Paul. I don't know, my friend. I don't know. I just know that I'm looking at this Vallejo metal color on this model right now and thinking, it's looking good. That's what I'm thinking.
And I am painting my Balthazar Gold onto this model that I'm working on, and it's all right.
It's all right. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, obviously a big part of this for me is I enjoy using metallic paints in a lot of different ways.
Yep.
And I don't just stop by applying metal and washing it. Washing metal is anathema to me unless it's an oil wash.
Yeah.
And or unless you're trying to make a completely rusted hunk of junk, in which case you want to knock all the shine out of it. So fine. Cool. Fair dinkum. If you're trying to make some rusted out piece of steel, then go nuts. Throw every wash you want in the world on it. But if you're talking about like real metal, where it's supposed to have some level of metal shine, I like to glaze over it and stuff like that. I like to add other colors to it. I like to be able to, I did the Bloodthirster, okay, which this isn't going to show on camera, but I'll see if it will. I doubt it will, but here, give me a second. So, all right, come here, little guy. Okay, I'll lock on me so I can see. We'll put him on this side of the light. Here, we'll do this. Do. Okay, there we go. So you see his axe?
Yep.
Okay, so if you look at the axe, I don't know if it's going to actually come through at this scale with how it's fuzzing things out in the camera. But can you see the transition through like yellow and brown happening at the axe? Yes. Like it's done in this non-metallic style, right? Like that's actually tiny little hash lines. Like I sat down with like a size very small brush and literally drew tiny ittle bitty baby lines. Like every section of this axe is probably 300 or 400 little lines of different paints, right? Just back and forth. And so it took a while, but who cares? Like the point is that I can do that with these metal colors because I can trace that thin of a precise line, right? Because it flows like ink. I couldn't do that with some jelly garbage paint. So it's those kinds of things. Or if I'm going to glaze over it, a glaze needs like a really, really flat surface to flow smoothly over. And bumpy, chunky paints ain't flat. So there you go. True. Yes, I do. I do love the Molotov liquid chrome. Somebody was talking about it in the comments. And yes, for your highlight on your steel, it's incredible. I use it as a final highlight over top because it is literally painting a mirror onto something. So it's a very cool effect. Cool.
Okay, friends, I'm gonna head to bed.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to do the same.
No, it's
Been
getting
fun, kids.
absolutely. It's getting on to that time. It's been a lot of fun to hang out. I'm glad you did this. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for saving me
Yeah.
from my night of sitting here with no content and having a fun conversation.
Sorry, I'm in Cincinnati, so otherwise I would be hobbying this evening as well. So
Gotcha.
So you're drinking beer out of a boot,
what was that?
having some schnitzel.
Is
Instead,
he
you're
going to
drinking
Hofbrau? Is that
liters of beer out of a boot and having some
No.
schnitzel.
No, I am up here with family, so in Westchester. So
I would say before like
Look,
8
everybody loves
PM,
Hofbrau? There's nothing
family
wrong with that.
establishment.
Sure.
Everybody loves a good polka band.
It's true. It's true. It's scientifically proven that actually no one likes polka bands. I don't know why they still exist. It is a 0% thing.
They're fun.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Good times. But yeah, so far I'm kind of digging the contrast. I think it's going to be mainly on infantry that I'm using it. Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest.
really like the flesh tone.
Yeah,
Because
like
that's just doing like what I would ordinarily do for horde infantry would be like, you know, like Kislev flesh and then the Reichland flesh shade. Now it's like I can do those 2 steps in one brush stroke. That sounds good.
yeah, I mean, what I would say is that I think that certain projects are going to benefit most from contrast paints.
Yep.
So I saw some wonderful, wonderful Tyranids. Because like the Tyranid, like the pitted flesh, like in the carapace and all that, takes really well to the paint, right?
Sure.
Like I think that Nurgle demons would be a wonderful army to do with contrast paints. Because of how like the plague bearer flesh is, or the great unclean one flesh. Like I think they would be great quick paint ups. You don't want large flat surfaces with contrast paint. You want just all of the, you know, pits and creases and all that stuff.
Right.
So I think that they're
Yeah.
my son is going to be doing Iron Jaws using contrast, and I think that'll probably go pretty well. So we'll see.
I think this is going to make a lot more Skaven armies hit the table.
Sure.
Well, then
Yeah,
let's see those fixes.
Yeah, I can't in good conscience just do that though.
Let's hope to God, every war scroll entry in the book, just increase it all by 10 points at least, and we'll be good.
They don't all need to go up. I think Rat Ogres and the Clan Eshin stuff's probably fine, Paul.
Well, yeah, but I mean, nobody's playing with them anyway, so let's increase those too.
Sure, I think we can. I think we can be reasonable about it. Like adjust the things that are bad. Don't worry about the rest. Life moves on. We all have a good day. Happy Skippy. We solved the problem.
Like basically all of the Vermin Lords need to go up.
I don't know that all of them do, but certainly the big offenders do. So yeah, I mean, again, this stuff has pretty direct solutions. None of this is rocket science. So it's fine. We'll get it.
The one thing I have to say though is like for myself building like what I hope are competitive lists with Skaven, like they got a lot of slack in there. Like they're going to need to increase these points by a lot to really put a dent in what these armies are doing.
Well, time will tell, I guess, right?
Yeah. 80 points that I'm like, like collectively, the rest of my army could go up 80 points and nothing would really change because I just had this superfluous rattling cannon in it.
Sure. All right, buddy. We calling it a night?
Oh, anyway,
Cool. Night, folks.
calling
Later on, guys.
later.